Okay, May 4th, 2024, and this is a part 2. I'm now coming back from the pharmacy, but I just thought I'd do a part 2 because this is like an interesting side of Lviv here, this Uhorska street. This is like a tech area. There's a lot of tech companies around here, so, and a lot of new apartments. So I mean, I'll just kind of show you around. It's like, I guess a lot of this high density housing, and then here's the office, and then just apartments, businesses, and you can do everything walking distance here. It's really a fantastic place to live. I would, I like where I'm at Avalon, but I wouldn't mind if I found a big enough place on the second floor to come down this way. It would save like 10 minutes. They have a nice private school around here for the kids and everything like that. So in Ukraine, there's a lot more need for private schools, although they're putting money into the public schools for STEM, but the private schools will be in an English medium, many of them, which I want. I want my daughter to be able to go to university in America. So yeah, I just wanted to show you this. So it's a really nice, all modern and everything. It's cool. And you can do everything without a car. That's what it's like, freedom, and walking 20 minutes is better than driving 20 minutes. It does a lot more for your health, and you can just digest stuff at a easier pace. So yeah, we got some cream for the baby's skin. You have to keep trying different things until you find something that works. So yeah. So it's a lot of parents out today. Yeah, you wouldn't think we're in a demographic crisis in Ukraine if you were here, but statistically, yeah, it's like only 1.1 children per woman or something here. It's like pretty low. So the population's on decline. And I think that's most of Europe now. I think almost all of Europe is under 2. I think Finland at one point was 2.1 at sustainable level, but I think they've even dropped off. So yeah, I'd like to have one more kid, so at least we're sustaining the population. But yeah, there's actually there's a lot of places for rent here too. There's I don't know if this could be a restaurant or it's more like a shop or something, because you need ventilation for a restaurant. You need to, especially if it's Indian, the smells will overpower you. So Indian restaurants, you have to spend a lot of extra money on ventilation. So, you don't get hit with that strong smell when you walk in. The best Indian restaurants, when you walk in, that aroma isn't overpowering you. So yeah. Now so we talked about differences, the trade-off between living in the U.S. and Norway. The U.S. is more money, Norway is more free time and better social services. And America has this ability to do like a lot of upside potential. But I guess on the way back we talk about what's the future here. What lies in the future. I think we've talked about this also before, that it looks like something is starting to take shape, but it's really hard to know. I mean, we're now seeing in the news that Ukraine has lost some ground because the weapons arrived late. So it's uncertain how far the Russians would go given the opportunity. My feeling is they just want those 4 regions, and then they would put in a puppet government that would be what's on their mind. And then, everything would just go back to sucking, paying bribes and, dealing with bureaucracy. And my visa probably would I'd be banned. The rug government or whatever they'll get some government like Georgia has, just become a rug state of some sort. And again, the sun. So Yeah, I think that's why we gotta go for a little while until we can see where things are, where things will get righted. But yeah, and Macron is talking about sending French soldiers here. Now that's interesting, because the rest of Europe hasn't gone on board with that, and I think even the U.S. told them to walk that back. But that would be nice if it's not a kabuki theater and he's actually thinking that way. I mean, like having a Churchill moment or having a Roosevelt moment or something, and actually doing something that's right instead of playing politics. I mean, I was explaining to people in America, everyone's like comparing Ukraine and Russia, like Europe versus Nazi Germany. But the big difference is, like, if Russia didn't have nuclear weapons, believe me, all of the US and NATO would be here, and they would have already been in Moscow by now. That's the big problem. It's the nukes. Otherwise, this would have been over quicker than the Iraq War. I don't think, after seeing what Prigozhin did, imagine, like, okay, there was no Russian nuclear weapons, it was just purely conventional war. You would have the US military, airlifted here, drop a few units, do an airborne assault, jam the Russian radars. I mean, they would have been in Moscow by now. I think it would have taken them, I don't know, Desert Storm 1, it was like 90 days. Yeah, I just have to check the speaker, make sure that the Bluetooth is working. But yeah, they would have been, I think they could have been in Moscow in 90 days. They would have seized the Kremlin. It would have been like Putin would have been on the run like Saddam. And most of the Russians in this case, unlike the Arabs in Iraq, they would have actually been welcoming the Americans. It would have been like, in that sense, they would have been cooperating and everything. Because, I mean, they already have American companies over there. And, it's a similar kind of lifestyle. Similar, hate to say it, but they are more closer to Europe than the Middle Eastern countries. So I think from what we saw Prigozhin, there would have been no resistance. Hang on, my wife is asking if I found it, and yeah, I'll have to, yeah, so it would have been over. But since there's nukes, it's like North Korea, right? I mean, if North Korea didn't have nukes, the Americans and the South Koreans would have, it would have been easy. You could use electronic warfare, airborne assault. I wouldn't say easy. I mean, Grenada wasn't even easy, but it would be something that they could handle. I could say that the Americans and the European allies, or in Korea in that case, if they didn't have nuclear weapons, and the Asian allies, the Japanese army and the South Korean army and the American army working together, and Filipino military, they would have, and Thailand is also formidable. They have very formidable special forces and different abilities as well. They would have crushed North Korea. I mean, it'd have been hard, but it would have been doable. And I mean, I think even then, they would have been able to even convince some of the North Korean generals to just surrender, and promise them houses in Miami and stuff. I mean, that's how North Korea is being held together. It's not idealism. The very top elite in North Korea are being bought off. There's like a whole documentary on this, like they're given nice apartments, nice cars, allowed to use cell phones. So there's this upper crest of North Korea of 2,000 people that have cars and cell phones, and their kids go to like special schools. And a few of those people have defected. There have been a few of those defections from that caste or that class of North Koreans. And I think let's say there was a conventional war with Russia, and there, it had been the same thing. Those generals and everything surrounding Putin, you know, they would have gotten hold of them through Twitter or something and told them lay down their arms, and I think there would have been a lot of that, and they might have even have just served them up for us, you know, brought them to the border. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world of nuclear weapons. We're not fighting the Nazi Germans anymore. We're fighting nuclear-powered Russia. So somewhere there's this red line that we have to step carefully about. You know, that, you know, we got to keep the war at a certain level, but can't turn it up too much. You know, because the Russians don't care. You know, if they feel like they're boxed in and there's no off-ramp and it's going to be over for Putin, he would lob some nukes, and we need 10 more years before we can intercept all the incoming ballistic missiles with full confidence. We're getting there. I mean, you can see on the attack Iran had attacked Israel. They were able to shoot down 99% of the missiles. You know, there was only one out of all that got through. But if in a nuclear situation there's 1,000 missiles and you shoot down 999, even one getting through is too much. You know, I mean, so it would have to be like 1 in a million or something, like a Six Sigma. You know, that's a Six Sigma problem. It's like airline quality. Only 2 failures out of 7 million opportunities or something in the airline business. You know, so that's another big difference here is people's driving compared to like Europe. In Norway, you can't even honk the horn in Norway. You get in trouble if you honk the horn and it wasn't a life or death situation. You know, you get in big trouble over there. You know, honking and everything like that. It's another thing you see a lot of people coming back from the war, and they're older men, and they gotten all messed up. You know, the average age of the soldier on the front lines 43. So, yeah, that's why, I don't know, I'm not very popular when I talk to some people, but I don't think they understand. If there were no nuclear weapons, the U.S. would, you know, Moscow would be like New Washington or something. They would have, you know, New Anchorage or something like that. I mean, it would have been like Russia would have been, you know, West Alaska, you know, but it's not the reality we live in. There's lines, you know, invisible lines we have to be aware of, and I think that's what they're trying to navigate, see how far they can push it, you know, so that they don't, you know, you can't let, obviously, because they have nuclear weapons, you can't just let them do what they want, but there is this like equilibrium they're trying to find. They're trying to find some equilibrium, like how hard can they squeeze the egg without breaking it and everything goes nuclear, right? But if you let the egg go, if you don't hold the egg tight enough to it, falls out and breaks, right? And if you squeeze it too hard, it breaks. So it's like holding an egg. You know, they're just trying to find this like sweet spot. And I think it's what it is. It's going to be a long war, as I said. They'll send arms. They'll just keep everything to hold the current lines. It looks like that's all the weapons that they're getting, just holding the current line. I don't think there will ever be official recognition of the four regions under Russia, unless there's like this full NATO agreement. You know, I don't know if North Korea is officially recognized or not. I mean, they go to the Olympics, they have an airline, they have a seat at the UN. So I don't know. Actually, I don't know if they're in the UN or not. I have to look that one up, but I think they are. Iran is in the UN. Russia is obviously in the UN. Cuba was in the UN. So, I mean, maybe North Korea is in the UN. But that's what they have to. I think they're trying to find is this equilibrium. And like I said, if they were ever to recognize those regions under Russia, it would have to be like then Ukraine gets to be like full member of NATO with the bases and, you know, all the NATO weapons and, you know, 500,000 American soldiers stationed here. You know, like we would need a whole American Foreign Legion. That's what we could do with all the people crossing the border. offer them that they can join the army for 10 years. You know, if they're coming from the southern border, join the American Legion, Foreign Legion, or something like the French Foreign Legion. They go through they're a different, separate unit of the army, and it's all foreigners under some U.S. officers or something, and they would be serving on the Ukrainian front. I mean, obviously they would be working with some special forces or, you know, regular U.S. military units, but they would be basically the muscle. You know, they would be the bulk that would take on the Russians if they were to come back, but they would be better equipped with air power and training, and they would be younger. You know, they would have all the optics, all the electronic equipment that the Ukrainians aren't getting. You know, the Ukrainians are just getting, like, I explained to many people, the billions of dollars doesn't come here. They just replace Europe dumps all their old weapons here, America dumps all their old weapons there, and the $61 billion pays for the replacements. You know, so then the Europeans get all these new weapons that they will never use. You know, so I think they only get a few new weapon systems here, but you know, they're backlogged. Like I heard the Norwegian air-to-surface or surface-to-air missiles, the ones that shoot down the rockets, those are take incredibly long time to build. And you know, that's again, like if Europe was really serious, like America was serious in World War II, they would be rolling those things out like 1,000 a week, like they did with B-17 bombers. They converted cookie factories and food factories and car factories into weapon factories, like literally within a year. And they were just stamping out so many weapons and just throwing them at the Germans. I mean, if America and Europe was serious, if we did it in World War II without IT, without computer technology and modern machines, we should be able to do things within 3 months now to re-gear the economy for war. You know, it should be much easier, I would think. You know, but I guess they have zoning permits, building permits, and we have, you know, part of our Congress is bought off by the Russians, part of the European Congresses and European parliaments, you know, they have a lot of Russians in their midst as well. So who knows? Like I said, it's going to go on a long time. But there is a reason why the West is holding back and fighting this limited war. And it is the nukes. Because if there were no nukes, like I've been saying, if there were no nukes, this would have been over a long time ago. The U.S. would have had a nice field training exercise. They would have had a whole line of M1 Abrams tanks, you know, just rolling right through the Russian lines, A-10 Warthogs, tearing up all the Russian positions. You know, JDAM stealth bombers. I mean, Moscow would have been, you know, flattened. You know, well, it wouldn't even, like I said, I think they would have just surrendered. You know, they would have just said, okay, we give up. We know what's coming. You know, American firepower, you can't touch it. You know, and, you know, Finland would have gotten its Karelia back. You know, Finland lost a bunch of land too. You know, they fought bravely, held the line against the Russians, but Karelia ended up going to the, you know, ended up going there. Okay, my wife is calling, so I will, yep, we'll talk next time. See you, bye-bye.